Hey there, Jordan Sheridan live right here in the United Corporations of America. This is Status Coup, ready to go. Have a great guest joining me, Steve Grumbine from Real Progressives. I wanted to have you on because I think even though we cannot physically get into theaters in America right now, I think we are living through one giant terrible play. And between the Republican douchebaggery, between the Democrat enabling of that douchebaggery, in reality, we have all of the money in the world to pour into now fallen off a cliff economy. But we have back and forth theater going on that to me makes very little sense. I want to play a clip from Alan Greenspan, former Federal Reserve Chair, explaining kind of how money works and how taxes work and these kind of things, because I don't particularly think people realize that we're all being lied to.
So having personal retirement accounts is another way of making a future retiree benefits more secure for their retirement. And also, do you believe that personal retirement accounts as a component to a system of solvency does help improve solvency? Because when you have a personal retirement account policy, it's accompanied with a benefit offset. With that feature in place, do you believe that personal retirement accounts can help us achieve solvency for the system and make those future retiree benefits more secure?
Well, I wouldn't say that the pay-as-you-go benefits are insecure in the sense that there's nothing to prevent the federal government from creating as much money as it wants and paying it to somebody. The question is, how do you set up a system which assures that the real assets are created which those benefits are employed to purchase? So it's not a question of security. It's a question of the structure of a financial system which assures that the real resources are created for retirement as distinct from the cash. The cash itself is nice to have, but it's got to be in the context of the real resources being created at the time those benefits are paid, so that you can purchase real resources with the benefits, which of course are cash.
Mm-hmm. Alan Greenspan said, there's nothing to prevent the federal government from creating as much money as it wants. This would be known as modern monetary theory, which doesn't get a lot of play. Thanks to you and Real Progressive, Stephanie Kelton, it's getting a little bit more attention. But we have heard throughout this pandemic, states and cities are struggling. Nancy Pelosi, I think, mentioned universal basic income once, kind of in passing. The Republicans are now saying going back to their familiar deficits and debt. The Democrats agreed to the original coronavirus shit sandwich. But in reality, we could have done what Europe did, which is exactly what Alan Greenspan just described. Create money to just cover payrolls. The government could have been the backstop to cover payrolls, so we didn't have to put people on unemployment, or the government could have just given direct cash infusion, UBI. Rashida Tlaib said, mint the damn coin. Bernie Sanders, $2,000 a month. So now, because the Democrats and Republicans, these negotiations are going nowhere fast, Trump has put forth an unemployment executive action, which to me makes no sense. I'll play Larry Kudlow's disastrous interview in a little bit. But the bottom line is, isn't this all bullshit theater and we have the money and could just give it to people right now?
Yeah, so it's really more a matter of we never don't have money. We never do have money. We create money whenever we spend, right? So money is like a unit of account, like an inch or a pound. We don't have it just laying around. We create it every time we spend. And whenever we tax, we delete it out of existence. So the idea that we don't have this money is a joke. Stephanie Kelton has been loud and bold talking about how we need to send checks out, big checks out, to people, but not as a UBI, as more of a disaster payment right now to keep the economy from bottoming out, to keep people from, not having food, not having shelter, etc. But we've also staunchly advocated, nationalizing payroll to keep people where they are so that we don't have to make bad choices about going to work or taking our kids and putting them into school or whatever. I mean, you yourself had coronavirus, so you understand the impacts that this could have for so many people. But they put us in this untenable position with this lie, and then they were so far into the lie that they didn't know how to back out of the lie when we had a pandemic. So yeah, it is bullshit. And yes, Greenspan is the arch enemy, if you will, in terms of being king neoliberal. But he had a moment of honesty there in his discussion points with Paul Ryan, where he basically tells Paul Ryan, hey, there's no issue of solvency. There's only an issue of whether we can create an economy where the real goods and services, the real resources are there to meet the demand. And therein which lies the rub with the UBI. We've talked about that before, but Alan Greenspan is quite adamant that we have to have the goods and services. And so without being able to have the goods and services, that really makes expanding Social Security a problem. It makes any kind of basic income a problem. So we've got to be able to account for goods, real goods and services. We got to account for the fact that we can create money at will. It's never an issue of whether we have the money. But there is a third leg to this, and that is the legal authority to actually spend that money. And so some of these programs and stuff have special clauses the way they're written, kind of poison pills that were put in there back in the McCarthy era, where they were trying to make sure that nobody thought we were socialists, nobody thought we were communists or whatever. So they made you feel like you were paying into this thing. But in reality, all it is just a keystroke on a spreadsheet somewhere. That money is just like every bit of money the U.S. government spends. It's all brand new money, all brand new money.
And Steve, excuse me for the cheap break, but I forgot. The status quo cannot create money. So let me give you a few reminders. Number one, press that like button. We got 300 people watching, 153 of you. 153 of you have pressed the like button. I need another 100 or so. Please press that like button. Do it for Steve. He's working on a Sunday to join us here. So press the like button. It's a thumbs up button right under the live stream. Also, got a little promotion today. Steve, you might want in on this. Hey, free masks. If you sign up as a Status Coup member today, you're going to get a free special, what do they call that? Limited edition. These are not the masks we've been selling through our store. We ordered, I think, 100 special masks. Not that the ones you've been ordering from our store aren't special. These just have the bigger logo. So if you become a member today, statuscoup.com/join, you won't get that beautiful man, but you will get the mask that he's wearing. Hey, again, to be clear, these are not CDC certified, none of that. They're just to cover your nose, your mouth. Can't make any health proclamations, but you can wear a mask with the coup. So if you sign up as a member, statuscoup.com/join, $5 a month, you could get a free mask. Also, annual membership. If you sign up today as an annual member, so membership has different levels. You could become a low $5 member or sign up as an annual member for $179 annually. You'll get a free shirt and mask. And by the way, I mean, Steve, I don't know if you've gotten a shirt yet. Here's Mary. Mary, our first Status Coup viewer to send me a picture, swagging with Status Coup on her shirt. Mary, you're looking wonderful. Thanks for sending. Hope you don't mind I'm showing. So those are all the disclosures. If you sign up as a free, if you just sign up as a regular member, you'll get a free mask. If you sign up as an annual member, you'll get a free mask and a shirt. Full disclosure, we got to do this because we've lost a lot of members during coronavirus. We'll talk about media and stuff later, but anyway, I just wanted to get that out of the way. Sign up, statuscoup.com/join. The link is right here in the super chat. This is a super chat also, so feel free to leave your chats, and we'll keep reading them. So, Steve, I wanted to ask you also specifically because, to me, I mean, I'm not breaking news here that Trump is terrible. He obviously is not a populist, even though he presented himself as that. I actually am surprised because I thought he was just going to be desperate enough looking at the polls to go full on Bernie Sanders or just a cheap imitation, throw out Medicare for all for the final months before the election, throw out some UBI, and to say to hell with it, I want to win re-election. I thought McConnell would go along with it because he wants to keep the Senate. And then if he got reelected, they'd back off. It doesn't seem like he's doing that yet. But to me, I don't understand why the Democratic Party went along with this in the first place. There was no need to even push people off to unemployment because, again, you are pushing people off to a very outdated, both the technology at these state offices are outdated. They're not really set up for mass unemployment claims like a pandemic. I spoke with people where their state unemployment offices basically had 20 people working there, and they had to hire an extra 150 to deal with the demand of unemployment claims. So unemployment was not smart. They could have just, again, created money like they do for war, like they do for tax cuts for billionaires, like they do for subsidies to Goldman Sachs and Pfizer and Raytheon. But Democrats went along with this while also giving $4 to $6 trillion to corporations. I don't recall hearing how you're going to pay for that when they gave the $4 to $6 trillion to the corporations in the original bill. And also pivoting to Democrats are freaking out. Trump wants to do a payroll tax cut or deferment, whatever that means. I don't think it's a good idea, so I'm not defending it. But I'm saying to myself, this doesn't actually fund Social Security. That's a lie, too. Can you kind of respond to the Democrats going along with this original terrible legislation and all this faux cry that Trump's robbing Social Security? Social Security, in reality, is solvent as long as the government chooses to keep it solvent.
That's absolutely correct. First things first, we've got one party largely in there. I mean, people can debate about the quibbles that go back and forth, but in reality, it is good theater. You started this off perfectly. It's nothing but theater. And it's really disconcerting. I sit there in my own private moments thinking to myself, I'm screaming from the rooftops about these things constantly. And in reality, the average person is just really interested in not being depressed. They just want to be entertained. They're not interested necessarily in learning how this stuff works. And so the pressure to make these two warring children, this theater, become part of the apparatus that serves we the people. There's just no pressure from we the people, the populism that we thought we had. We're just not able to do that because we don't understand what's going on. And you nailed it. I mean, the bottom line is that Trump is absolutely not playing the role that we all thought he would outleft the Democrats even more. But by putting these executive orders out there, what he's done is a couple things. Number one, it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors, but let's be crystal clear. It does provide some absolute relief for some people. It's not just a complete zero-sum gain. And that's always been the trick with Trump, is that he gives just enough out there to make people forget what a jack-off he is, right? And so with the situation with Social Security, which is an even more nefarious situation. Social Security was written back in the days of World War II and the Great Depression and all that good stuff that was going on. So there was a lot of fear of communism, fear of socialism. And so FDR, in order to get this thing passed, and mind you, he had a second Bill of Rights he was trying to pass too, which didn't come to be. But in order to get Social Security through, he knew that Americans needed to feel like they were putting into it. So they wrote it in this concept of these trust funds. Well, the trust funds are merely a spreadsheet that tracks things. It doesn't actually have any money, and it doesn't really actually fund things in the way that we know. The government literally makes a policy decision to give authority to the government to make those payments. And so it's never an issue of whether we have the finances. The issue is whether or not the way the law is written gives Congress the authority to make those payments. It's like Nancy Pelosi and Pegosi, right? It's not anything that we can't do. We can pay till the cows come home. But she wants to insert this rule in there to block payments based on us raising taxes or cutting spending. It's the same thing with Social Security and the trust fund. There is no such thing as raiding the trust fund. It's a spreadsheet. There's no money in it. all the money, just as we already stated, is created every time they cut a Social Security check. So it's a bit of a heartstrings game. It's like Santa's telling you he's going to put coal in your stocking if you're not a good kid. Well, in this case, Social Security, they're saying, hey, you know, you're paying into this. You're entitled to it. It's yours, right? You've earned it, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is they could raise that to 100%. I mean, they could raise the payments out the wazoo. They could eliminate FICA taxes altogether, and it would still be completely solvent because the U.S. creates currency every time it spends. And I tell you, when you tell people this stuff, it's not just Republicans that get mad at you. It's our friends and loved ones within the progressive and left community that look at you like you're crazy. But it's true. It's true as the day is long. And until we grip that and hold it, we're going to allow Joe Biden to come out there and say, he's bankrupting Social Security. And then they all come together and say, yeah, it's bankrupt, so we got to privatize it. And that's always the underlying goal with these people. Joe Biden has long been on the hook trying to say, let's privatize Social Security. So did Hillary Clinton, lest any of the Democrats get a case of the feels out there thinking that I'm just, making stuff up. It's out there. Go research it. They have always wanted to privatize this because it fattens Wall Street. Right now, these payments are all made directly by the government, just like any other payment could be. And so it's just a matter of keystroking this stuff into existence. And that's what's happening now. It's not something that has to be implemented. That's not some far off fantasy. That's not even MMT. It's just MMT is the only one that describes it as it is. So I want to be clear. We can do all these things, and we're not. And you look at both parties and you ask yourself, why are you all playing political volleyball when we're out here literally wondering how we're going to get our next meal? It's ridiculous.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
And I want to show you some love, or John Cena, $10 in the super chat. Thanks, guys, for having Steve on. MMT is crucial stuff we need to learn and inject in the conversation now. Check out Real Progressives for more MMT knowledge and what to do next. Each one, teach one. I agree.
Tommy John.
Keep those super chats coming. By the way, the URL to Real Progressives website is in the description box. Check it out. So I want to start from the beginning of this, okay? Because to me, this is what should have happened in the beginning. Sure, the civil libertarians will crow and scream, even not like "don't tread on me" people. I'm talking like people on the left that are civil libertarians, have issues with privacy intrusions, which I agree with, and things like that. But to me, if you wanted to actually eliminate an unknown pandemic, don't fully understand how it transfers, don't fully understand how long it hangs in the air, we're not positive if masks, we think masks help minimize it, but we're not positive. Like, I wore a mask when I was out, and I still contracted it. So it's not 100%, but close enough. Bottom line, if you really wanted to stop the virus, what needed to be done was to just cancel everything for at least 30 days, meaning cancel rent, cancel mortgages, cancel student loans, cancel utilities, just freeze the entire economy. Not moratoriums on it, cancel it so everybody feels the pain equally. It's like put the country on pause. Everybody stay home. Yes, people would not like that, but the way to really get rid of it in the first place was people not near each other everywhere. One uniform federal rule, not this piecemeal, this state does this county does this. And that could have been done because, again, we create the money. The taxes don't fully cover anything, really. So would that have been possible? The landlord would have been in the same situation as the renter, right? The student would have been in the same position as the person that owes a loan shark. Everything would have been basically for a month forgiven. If it required longer than a month, so be it. And instead of this long drawn out economic, frankly, I think we're near a depression once
we are in a depression.
Yeah. Wouldn't that have been the answer, or is that not practical?
I think we could go a step further. I had Pavlina Trineva, who's from Bard College and Levy Institute, on with me, and we talked about nationalizing payroll. We could have made every single employee have their full paycheck, not just some, like every worker, everybody that earns a paycheck. And that means even people that make a lot of money We're not most rich people are not getting a paycheck. That's not where their money comes from. So we got to stop hating on paycheck people, right? But the idea of everybody just getting their paycheck could have been done just like that. The other thing could have been done. If you really are worried about these folks not getting paid, these small businesses and stuff like that, it's completely conceivable, and there's people out there probably won't like this, but rather than bailing out the multinational corporations the way the Fed did through QE and stuff like that, what it could have done also is it could have said, hey, for the next 3 months, we'll average out what your normal income would have been, and we will make direct payments to you all to keep these stores minus the payroll that we're covering already. We'll give you that, and that way the economy just keeps going along. It's like, the reason why they didn't do that, though, is even more nefarious. Because, see, once we understand that they can do that, then it completely defeats capitalism. This is what's beautiful about MMT. Once we understand that money comes from the government, in this case, it's state currency, and the government is actually the one in control of markets. It's the one setting the rules. It's the one providing liquidity. It's not these businesses. It's not the banks. It's the government. Once you realize the government is the monopoly issuer, the monopoly price setter, et cetera, then all of a sudden it's like, well, hold on, this whole free market thing's blown out of the water. But you can't make people realize that because they've got almost religious beliefs about the way money works. And so getting past that is a real challenge. People get really upset when you talk about this stuff. And I came from the Ron Paul world, so I understand all those arguments. I really do. And I was sympathetic. I'm less.
Steve, can I just
Yes,
interrupt you? I apologize for interrupting you, but I need to make a point.
Yeah.
A quick point.
Sure.
Rand Paul is a fraud. He just voted against a 10% reduction in the defense budget. Again, the defense budget doesn't even cover it, MMT. But the point is, Rand Paul, his father at least was consistent on this. Rand Paul, who everyone, progressives tend to, give an olive branch because he's anti-war. He's not really anti-war because he just voted against Bernie's amendment or bill to cut the Pentagon budget by 10%. I digress. Just wanted to get that out there. Go on.
Worth it, man. Worth it. I mean, there's the other. You nailed it, man. I mean, bottom line is that these folks out there recognize that the only acceptable way to get money into the economy that will never get pushback, and you see it by Rand Paul, is spending it into the military and letting it come through the military back into the economy. Soldiers buy bread, soldiers buy automobiles, soldiers buy motorcycles, and then the military buys guns and tanks and planes and trains and automobiles, all the stuff they buy with that, bombs. And ultimately, that's the way the money gets into the economy. They got that first dollar. Instead of spending that dollar on regular people so they can pay their electric, they pay that first dollar into Halliburton and into Boeing and into all these different groups out there, Northrop Grumman, you name it. And then that money matriculates from them. So they have far more power over the economy based on where we spend that first dollar. It's not by mistake. These people are bought and paid for. They are on the take full and full. So I think it's important for us to understand that just because that's how it works doesn't mean that's how it has to work. That it could serve the people. We could spend down at the bottom instead of starting at the top and leave it democratic as to where that money makes it. If we don't decide to spend our money on Northrop Grumman, guess what? Northrop Grumman doesn't get that money. And so it's just a fundamental different way of looking at the whole enchilada, right? If you think that we have to wait on banks to pay for this stuff, you got it all wrong. The government is the one that makes the decisions when it passes laws. And even when it doesn't pass laws, it's got a lot of these baked in laws called automatic stabilizers that are automatic infusions, cash infusions into the economy, like TANF and all these other little things that when certain things happen in the economy, they trigger another event that spends that money, new money, into the economy, not tax dollars, new money. And I think that this paradigm here is still the most challenging thing to get our movement in particular to get their arms around, because once they acknowledge this, there's a lot of disconnecting that has to be done. There's a lot of old beliefs that you have in your head about what the rich, we want to eat the rich, but we want to eat them for dessert, not the main course, because the main course is federal spending. The dessert is eating the rich because they're too damn rich and stopping them from buying our democracy. But we keep putting the rich ahead of these things so that we think we're getting their money to pay for these programs, but that's not how it works. And the military is the perfect example to prove that through and through. I I hope the audience here, because we have some shared audience, I hope we all start grabbing a hold of this and remembering this, so that when we hear Biden say nonsense or we hear Trump say nonsense, that as one united front, we're fighting for economic truth, not partisan. I'm a Democrat, you're a Republican, because the 99% goes across both of these. And if we united in this truth, imagine all the lies that are told in the name of economic buffoonery that we could get rid of and just get right to, well, what do we value? What do we value as a society? And I would suspect that everybody to have fought in the pandemic would say, I value healthcare. I value getting rid of student debt so my child isn't leaving the home. Their first job is just to pay off their student debt for the next 20 years before they have their first kiss. Going back to 1950s thinking, right? But the point is that we have a very, very skewed way of viewing this. And I think that if people take the time to read Stephanie Kelton's new book, The Deficit Myth, that book in and of itself is so easy to read, I think my mother could enjoy it, right? And my mom is a non-econ person, and she would enjoy it. It just breaks all these myths down. And, from my vantage point, I've been talking about this for 5 years publicly as, the voice of real progressives. But we also have our podcast, Macro and Cheese, where we just released our 81st episode yesterday. And we talk to these experts, and this is all we talk about, literally. And the social implications of the decisions we make or don't make as these guys are sitting there playing games, and nobody is getting served. I mean, I'm hearing friends talking about, I don't know how I'm going to make ends meet. And you yourself talked to me about how you lost subscribers here as a result of Corona. I mean, alternative media has taken a beating. We're already getting our butt kicked by mainstream media anyway. And then you look in and you see the way the coronavirus is impacting people's paychecks, and it's crushing the other voice, this voice of alternative media that provides truth where there is none in the mainstream. So I think it's very important that people start realizing how important this subject is, so that we as a movement, if we have a movement at all anymore, can move forward and really, really take the power back. It really is about knowledge.
Right. And we got 424 people watching, so 420, smoke that pipe. Press the like button so we can get more. 425 people watching, but 288 likes. So we got to get that differential up. If every single person could press the like button, even if you don't like me, do it for Steve. That's all I ask.
And if you hate me, do it anyway.
Because unfortunately, Steve brought up the mainstream media is kicking our butt. A large reason why is because Silicon Valley is hiding channels like this into a cave, as well as real progressives. Their algorithm fuckery props up and stuffs CNN, ABC News, MSNBC in your feed. It's unbelievable, Steve. If you click on YouTube trending, it's all corporate media constantly, because that's who YouTube's algorithm favors. Anyway, I could go on a long rant about that. I digress. Cyril O'Reilly, $20 in the super chat. Learn MMT. Hashtag each one teach. Austerity is murder. Thank you, Cyril O'Reilly. I think Cyril O'Reilly. And keep those super chats coming. Gino Fast, $49.99. Holy cow. Economic cliff is real. Canceling college football, billion-dollar industry. If they are canceling that, what's next? Football is huge. Let me tell you something, Gino and Steve, real quick on this. I think there's a better chance of me getting a six-pack by September than them canceling NFL football. These plutocrat billionaire owners, some black players have called them quasi-plantation masters. Basically, I think they would rather risk their players' lives than lose any profit. That's just my opinion. So I want to segue to Biden. And by the way, as a reminder, please press that like button. And if you're coming to this late, we have a new promo. If you sign up as an annual member today, statuscoup.com/join, you'll get a free Status Coup mask and shirt. Annual members get both. If you just sign up at any amount, you'll get a free mask. That's statuscoup.com/join. I uploaded a video just for members right before this interview. Boy, did I get a very interesting email this morning from a viewer reprimanding me for not being biblical enough. So anyway, I did a video on that for members. I uploaded it before I went live. Steve, I want to ask you, because Biden, I recall, during the debates, when he was lucid enough to debate, I recall Biden just saying to Bernie, he's like that old, grumpy little grandpa. Well, they're the same age, but whatever. I remember Biden very, very much saying to Bernie, how are we going to pay for this Medicare for all? How are we going to pay for all these, gizmos and gadgets you want to do? How are we going to help the people? But on one breath, he's saying, how are you going to pay for this $30 trillion? But on the other breath, I didn't hear him say a damn word at the time when Democrats agreed with Republicans to give $4 to $6 trillion out of thin air to corporations.
Not a word.
After the fact, after Democrats went forward with it, then he started the platitudes with Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, of reprimanding the lack of oversight, the lack of, structure and the lack of accountability. They didn't have a problem with the money out of thin air that they say doesn't exist. Remember? Joe Biden,
absolutely.
the Democrats, their whole thing is, we don't have the money for this. How are we going to pay for this? But when it was for corporations to pad their balance sheets during the pandemic, most of whom did not need the money, they could have afforded to lose. Joe Biden was silent. All of these anti-Medicare for all people were silent. MSNBC and CNN, who went on a Bernie Sanders jihad for 5 years, were silent. So how did they come up with the money for that? But we can't come up with the money for Medicare for all during a deadly pandemic, where I think they're underscoring how many people have no health care now. I saw the number at like 5 million more people. I think it's closer to 20 million more people, because I've spoken with people. If you think trying to get unemployment is tough right now, try getting through to the Medicaid phone line to get Medicaid.
Well, you think about this. I'm going to go back to what I said a few minutes ago and say point blank that the reason why they don't do this stuff is because they know that once they start taking care of people, we realize that they can take care of people. And the thing is that they don't want to give away the idea that the government can handle anything right. They've spent their entire careers making government look inept, making government look weak and feeble and unable to take care of the people. And so when you've got a lifetime invested in making government look incompetent, it is almost impossible to backtrack when you're 78 years old and your entire career has been spent screwing the people. Joe Biden has long since been a deficit hawk. He has been a lifetime deficit hawk. In fact, Bernie Sanders' team put out a great video clip of Joe Biden talking about how he wanted to cut everything. And he wasn't just talking about Medicare. He wasn't just talking about Social Security. He was talking about everything, cut everything, right? And this is who Joe Biden is. And so naturally, they've always used the mirage of the military. They've always used the mirage of businesses being the source of job creation, banks being the source of funding, all these. And so by getting rid of that illusion, by direct spending, they shatter everything they've ever said. And they know this, and they know this pandemic won't be forever. So if they start showing you their undergarments, they start pulling the curtain back, you're going to expect it long term. And we should expect it. We should demand it. But Joe Biden, he's a pretty bad guy, right? I mean, this is a guy who wrote the crime bill, who was instrumental in the Patriot Act. He literally wrote the damn bill, pushed the bill that made it so that all the bankruptcy were almost impossible to discharge during the global financial crisis. I mean, Joe Biden has been on the wrong side of every issue. He makes Ronald Reagan look like a Democrat. I mean, that's how bad Joe Biden is in terms of being a right winger. And then enter into this Bernie Sanders unity task force that they brought, where they actually brought some heavy hitters. You had Stephanie Kelton. You had Sarah Nelson of the airline union. You had Derek Hamilton, and you had AOC. And they came together and they tried to talk about the deficit and how the thinking that they have about this stuff is all wrong. They try to push Medicare for all. They try to push a job guarantee. They try to put a Green New Deal out there, try to get rid of student debt. And lo and behold, the most they came away with was a super watered down student debt plan. And then, Biden, of course, piecemealing some sort of a fossil fuel plan. But at the end of the day, they're still thinking about it from a standpoint of markets and paying for it. How are you going to pay for it? It's still baked into the sauce. And so ultimately, these folks, this entire myth that Joe Biden is pushing is really, honest to God, he is making Trump look like a lefty here. And I hate the fact that Biden has better manners than Trump, because it obscures that fact so badly that when you try and explain to people, hey, you know, the Baltimore Ravens, when they won the Super Bowl a few years back, had Trent Dilfer, a really crappy quarterback. But they had a really, really good defense, and they won the Super Bowl by playing defense. Well, sometimes in politics, it's better to play defense than go out there with Ryan Leaf as your quarterback. Okay, and that's what Joe Biden is. He's Ryan Leaf. And if you try and get rid of Trump, we have 100% unity against Trump. Everybody is willing to fight against Trump. All these Emily's listers and other folks out there, the ones that are ready to go to brunch, well, guess what? They got to put brunch off for 4 years if Trump is reelected. But with Biden, we lose 75% of our resistance right there. All those vote blue, no matter who, folks, immediately go back to Borg, reinsert into the matrix, and they're ready to go to brunch. And they're like wearing those pork pie hats, celebrating, laughing, going out on their vacations and stuff like that. While the same poor people, the Black Lives Matter folks and everyone else are left with 75% less support than they had before. These real issues get washed away. And by the way, climate change didn't stop. And so Biden is like a sedative to 75% of our forces. And I use those people, even though they're not necessarily quote unquote allies per se, they're allies when the Republicans are in office. The minute that happens, they're back to defending blue. Think about how many people defended Hillary Clinton with Benghazi. Think about how many people defended Barack Obama every time he bombed a new country. Think about how many people defended Barack Obama when he told people to eat their peas, or when he tried to reprimand black people for being better parents. I mean, they have literally over and over again, they defend blue worse than the police and their thin blue line. The Democrats do the same thing. So the minute that Biden gets elected, if he gets elected, and that's no sure thing, you're going to lose a huge swath of power and energy. And all of a sudden, the mainstream media, which, I mean, you saw the lady from MSNBC who just quit because of the bias. Can you imagine the silence of our movement once Biden gets in there? They're not going to cover any of our issues. It'll only be what they want to hear. And I mean, it's devastating. I can't even imagine how bad that would be for our causes, our issues. And it seems like that's a win, but I don't see it as a win. I see it as a complete and utter loss at a time where we all need to really be united in pushing this ball forward. It just sucks that we don't have Bernie Sanders in the White House or someone else like Bernie Sanders. Instead, we're going to get stuck with Trump or Biden. And that's just a fact. It's a shame.
Before I go on, just want to read some super chats. Keep these coming. John Seiner, $5. Status Coup and Real Progressives are legit sources of knowledge and truth. I look forward to these two organizations collaborating going forward. Yes, we should do more. Vicky Blair, $20. I wasn't going to super chat because I still don't have a job, but since you have Steve on, you have my two favorite alt media channels, #LearnMT. Vicky, as much as I love you, I don't want you to give us money if you can't afford it. So keep it coming if you can. If you can't, we love you anyway, Vicky. And I hope things get better as soon as possible for you. VA from NY, $20. Steve and Jordan should do a weekly segment. Whoa, now. I don't know if Steve's two kids at home with him will allow it, but we'll see. JK, $5. Super chat for the great Steve Grumbine. Thank you. Keep it coming. 430 people watching right now, so everybody press that like button. As a reminder, the link for Real Progressives is in the description box, at the bottom of the description box, so you can check it out, realprogressiveusa.com. So, you know, there's something outside of just MMT that I think really comes into play here. Because to me, whether it's Trump or Biden, and I also don't want to, I think Trump is worse on certain things. For example, I think Trump is 100% worse on the environment. Not that Biden is a tree hugger, not that Biden even understands the gravity of the situation, but I mean, Trump is literally repealing any regulation on air, water. I mean, there are just things you could say objectively. Trump is one worse. The environment is one of them. War, I think it's a wash. To be honest, I think Biden probably would start a war with somebody, just because that's been his inclination. He wanted Obama to go in bombs away on bin Laden. He didn't just vote for Iraq. I didn't think Bernie really pushed this issue enough. He was one of the main cheerleaders and workers behind the scenes to get it through for George Bush. But to me, one of the big things, when you talk about part of the reason that we have this theater is because the government doesn't want the people to know that we can provide for all of this. I think it actually goes further than that. it's not the government that doesn't want the people that know. It's their bosses, the United Corporations of America. It's right, the donors that run the company that is in America. That's what the flag behind me is for. It's not even the government running things. Trump, for all his bravado, he got in there. What did he do? He serviced the donors, corporations, his hotels. He gave a $1.5 trillion tax cut to people who didn't need it. The deregulation. Biden, okay, he's going to increase corporate taxes to 28%. Do you think these corporations give a shit? No, because they know they're not going to pay anywhere near that, if they pay at all, because their accountants are going to get them a refund from a Biden government, just like these companies got a refund from an Obama administration. So surface level, Biden will increase taxes on corporate America or increase the top rate on the top people back to whatever it was, 39.5. But in reality, the reason that these officials don't push for blanket government just cover the payrolls or keep all employees on the payrolls so the government foots the bill, or a mixture of UBI, is because their donors do not want them or will not allow them. It's the same thing for Medicare for All. Isn't it kind of a conflict, Steve, if the Democratic politicians and the Republican politicians are getting hundreds of millions of dollars to the point of a total billions of dollars from Wall Street investors, that in their portfolio, some of their top investments are healthcare industry, hospital equipment, pharmaceutical companies. They don't want Medicare for All because their Wall Street profits are heavily reliant on the for-profit healthcare industry. So I think people might realize, but not to the extent, a lot of this theater, it's not only that people don't understand MMT, our government officials don't want people to understand it because their donors don't want to open up Pandora's box.
It's so well said. So well said. I mean, Jamie Dimon is on record saying that, recessions, may be bad for regular people, but they're pretty damn good for JP Morgan. Okay. Recessions are an opportunity. If you ever look at a wave from a tsunami, right? You see how the water pulls back and you see all the conch shells on the beach and you see all the different, seashells all up and down, right? And then all of a sudden this wall of water comes through and sweeps everyone away. And then it retrenches again. But the one person, one entity, if you will, that survives all that is the people that come in and buy up all the assets after everybody's been wiped out. And that's what these corporations of America are doing to us. That's what the donor class and the oligarchs. And I hate using these big words. Bottom line is these are very wealthy people that are well connected, that have their hands all over government. And that they're the ones that basically hand select who, what, when, why, and where. And so, yeah, I mean, they're literally watching us, every one of these recessions, every one of these depressions, that tsunami wipes us out and they come in and they capitalize on it more. If you look, people have still not gotten back their base income that they had from the last global financial crisis. In fact, we've gotten to be even a more gig economy where people have even less security, et cetera. And this is all by design. This is Silicon Valley putting their thumbprint on it, who are also, by the way, one of the leading voices in the UBI movement. And there's a reason for that. They want to control us because when they have all these video games and, look at Facebook that wants to do Libra, all these ability to control us through mass surveillance and data warehousing and all this other, this is what they want. They want us to be able to spend money, and they want us to be able to spend money through the internet, and they want us to be able to be tracked by that and so forth. They sell that money, sell that information to law enforcement. They sell that information to other corporations. They just make money off of our behavior constantly.
Steve, let me tell you, I sometimes share too much. I'm having a bit of a problem with constipation, okay? I've been Googling, things that could help me go to the bathroom. I'm a 33-year-old going on 95. I Google, this or that, constipation, leaky gut syndrome, whatever. I am bombarded now on Facebook with ads for everything under the sun, some things I don't even want to share. So when you say surveillance, they're surveilling everything from your, health searches to more serious private things like that, all to make money. Go on.
Look, I'm a huge Grateful Dead fan, and John Ciner will definitely bust my chops for being a huge Deadhead, but I am a huge Deadhead. And so I went out and made the mistake of buying one really cool tie-dye shirt I liked. I really liked it. Then all of a sudden, everywhere I went, there was tie-dye shirts for sale. I'm like, it didn't suddenly become 1969 all of a sudden again, right? But sure enough, everywhere I go, I'm getting bombarded with sales for tie-dyes. And the first 2 or 3, I bit like a champ. I said, gotta have that one, gotta have that one. And so before long, I had 3 or 4 Grateful Dead tie-dye shirts that I hadn't previously had. And I just started to say, wait, hold on, I gotta clear my cache or something, because I can't keep getting bombarded with this. And then the next thing, I actually looked for a glass pipe. And all of a sudden now I got every single one of these water bongs and you name it showing up in my, I'm like, what the heck, man? And each time you do that, I bought a watch one time. Now all of a sudden watches are showing up everywhere. So, and in emails coming, hey, Steve, and phone calls, random phone calls, hey, your electric company is charging you too much. And you're like, what? Oh, I filled out a form online, damn it. It goes everywhere. And this is a big part of why they want us. Here's some money, because we don't really care about you getting the money. We care about the data that we can get from you spending that money. And the more data we get, the more we can track you and the more that we can sell that knowledge to whoever. And in fact, sell it back to the government, which is crazy. But yes, this is what's going on right now today.
Mm-hmm. NBW Doughboy, $2. I love these segments so much. MMT is interesting. Thank you. We got, hold on, Bad Mama Jama, $5. A million thanks for having Steve on. MMT may not be the sexiest topic, but it is one of the most crucial at the moment. Proud, Real Progressives, and Status Coup patron. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Bad Mama Jama. So let's cast forward. I mean, I don't tell people how to vote. Vote however you want, Trump or Biden. But as it stands right now, if the election were held today, it looks like Biden would get in there. When I say Biden would get in there, I really say whoever his vice president is, because I think there's a good chance in a year and a half we might be looking at a new president. I'm not wishing Biden health problems, but it's clear something's going on. I've been saying it for a year. Of course, the Democratic Party would rather run a half-dead, cognitively failing, person than a progressive, but that's a different story. So, to me, I feel like this is just Groundhog's Day, because I foresee what's going to happen. It's kind of what happened when Obama got in there. Obviously, we didn't have a health pandemic there, but you have the economy falling off a cliff. Biden's going to get in there. He's probably going to surround himself with bankers. Rumors that Jamie Dimon might be Treasury Secretary. Lawrence Summers has been advising him. I mean, the neoliberal class reunion of the 90s, basically. And maybe they'll do a stimulus like Obama did. Maybe a little bigger this time. Let's put it at 1.52 trillion. And there's going to be a lot of incremental bullshit in there. A lot of tax cuts for the middle class, or tax cuts for companies that rehire or training for, the jobs of tomorrow, and, all this talk about coding and blah, blah, blah. Basically, it's going to be a mishmash of tax cuts, tax credits, incentives, and some other window dressing with very little direct actual cash infusion to people. None of what FDR did, which is direct government jobs program. To me, a specific government jobs program would be directly for black communities, brown communities that have never had government jobs programs. So to me, throw it up there. Yeah, you could say Trump is worse, let's get rid of him and then fight Biden. But if Biden gets in there, I feel like we're just going to have a quote, air quotes, recovery like we did from Obama, where unemployment goes down, the rate will go down, but the actual economic picture will remain. Since 2008, most working people did not fully cover from that, even today, right?
That's right. That's
since
correct.
2008, I don't have the percentages, but I'd say a very large percent of those jobs lost never came back, because these corporate pigs, they learned to do more with less.
Yep.
And now you mix in automation, artificial intelligence, this and that. So I think a Biden recovery would basically be like an Obama recovery, surface level recovery that massively expands income inequality and leaves a permanent jobless class.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny you say that. We talk about a job guarantee. A federal job guarantee is the cornerstone of modern monetary theory. There's no greater policy position that MMT puts out there than the federal job guarantee. And the federal job guarantee, which you're kind of talking about, you're actually making it for, just a segment. I'm saying federal job guarantee should be a right to a job. Every one of us has a right to a job. So in other words, if I decide I don't like my employer, forget getting fired, I just don't like my employer and there's no jobs available, I can walk right out the door and go into a federal job guarantee job and serve my local community just like that. I could do that if we had a federal job guarantee. And because they don't want, in fact, Biden's campaign was advised by Stephanie Kelton and Derek Hamilton, who are two of the leading voices on the job guarantee side. And Biden's campaign said, we don't know enough about the job guarantee. We're not interested in it, and nixed it.
Oh, are they going to do a commission like they want to do on reparations? We need to study it more? Yeah.
I don't even think they want to do that. That's how bad it is. And the frustrating thing about this is that, I heard what you said about not wanting to advise anyone how to vote. And I just put my opinions out there. What you do with them is your business. But in my opinion, I'm a movement guy, right? I look at not necessarily the electoral side of this. I'm looking at what keeps all of us in the street, what keeps all of us engaged fighting back. And I'm thinking to myself, when Bernie was running, we were there, man. We were out there. And when Bernie fell apart, everyone started falling apart, kind of like rudderless a little bit, like, damn, now what? What do we do now, man? I've spent the last 5 years saying the word Bernie Sanders every day of my life. Now what? What do I do? And I worry that a Biden, just like Obama, with hope and change, is going to come in there and literally put people back to sleep. It's got nothing to do with who's better or worse, because Trump is clearly worse in a lot of respects. But what is not understood is the definition of worse. If you're looking at tweets, he's worse. If you're looking at pulling out of those agreements, worse. But if you're looking at the idea of we're fighting for you, we've got your back, America, and then all of a sudden you see them do the typical Democrat capitulation, I mean, that's what I am deathly afraid of, because then you're fighting not against Republicans, but you're fighting against Democrats to make them see that the Democrats once again did this. And they're not going to hear that. So I'm looking at the clock, the IPCC clock, where they talked about climate change, and they said 12 years, and this was like 3 years ago. So we're looking at 9 years. 9 years to actually take direct action to stop climate change from happening. And Biden is not committed to this. So we're talking about very, very hardcore situations that are going to bring about even more calamity, destroyed coastlines, destroyed communities, arid conditions, climate refugees, all these problems that are not being solved by nothing will fundamentally change Joe. So I'm very concerned as we go into this, that if we don't understand forget the politics. We didn't get a chance to get Bernie Sanders even to the convention. He dropped out way before because of thumbs being put on the scale and a pandemic. Now, what's going to happen when we come past the election and people go back to sleep? I don't think we can vote our way out of this problem, is my point. I mean, you vote however you want, but I don't think we can vote our way out. So I've got to ask myself, what keeps Jordan going, what keeps Steve going, and what keeps all of the movement going? And the only thing I know is they don't go for what they could support. They go for what they can fight against. And so to me, that's the only thing I see. And I'm open for being told I'm wrong. But that's the only thing I see that keeps these people engaged. I mean, and I think that is really what we're talking about here, because you're not going to vote your way out of this stuff. They've already shown you that they're not going to. Biden picks a neoliberal vice president. And Biden, let's say, walks away in a year and a half, or let's say he finishes out his first term. But then you've got the neoliberal succession plan. And they've already shown you what their primaries look like. So let's say AOC decides to run. She's not even going to be given a speaking gig at the convention, but John Kasich, a Republican, is? Are you kidding me? So this is your Democratic Party. Where is the revolution there? Where is the response to climate change there? Where is the response to healthcare there? I don't see it. And that's what I'm afraid of. I don't see anything. And then you've got the neoliberal 8 years of the vice president taking over, because let's be fair, most presidents get 2 years. Bush got one, Bush Sr. got one, and then maybe Biden will get one. But the average, I mean, W got two. No matter how many wars he got us into, he still got reelected. Clinton, now even with impeachment, got a second term. You look at Obama, even with all the quote unquote racism and hate and all that stuff, 2 terms. Each one of these presidents gets 2 terms. So a vice president that's a neoliberal puts us at least, let's say, 8 years out from actually being able to make any kind of meaningful change. And that should terrify everyone, I think.
Well, I also think there's a psychological element to it because, to me, I think the progressive movement has exploded. I mean, there was no unified progressive movement before Bernie's first run. You had offshoots, Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter, Fight for 15, but I mean, Bernie single-handedly brought in millions of people that were asleep or not involved at all. So I don't necessarily think the progressive movement would go back to sleep because Biden is president. My thing is, I think if Biden becomes president, the neoliberals, led by Biden or whoever his vice president is, or whoever the top donor of the month is, they have a built-in excuse not to do anything. Trump has destroyed us domestically. He's destroyed us internationally. It's the amount of work to undo the damage that Trump has done. Our reputation abroad, our norms, our structures, or this or that. I mean, throw out your words platitude salad. But they are going to have a built-in excuse that MSNBC is going to drum home, CNN, David Brooks, their allies at all of these outlets, that we don't have the luxury of going huge or doing all the things necessary because we're still digging ourselves out of the ditch that Trump did. It's kind of what Obama did in a lot of degrees with Bush. Listen, I say blame Bush till I'm dead. I mean, there's no moratorium on that. But they limited the amount of what they could do because their talking points were, we're still unraveling the damage of George W. Bush. So I think that if it's Biden and the Democrats, it just gives them that built-in rationale that the whole cabal, the Center for American Progress will drum home, their allies, I mean, even Silicon Valley will drum home. It really is, for lack of a better word, a giant corporate psyops that will go in. So if you ask me, listen, I understand. People don't like when I say it. I do understand why people would hold their nose and vote for Biden, because for some people, Trump is that bad. I mean, I have a certain amount of privilege as a white dude, so I'm not going to speak for black people, brown people, native people, immigrants. Like, I get it. If this is just too severe or threatening to you, who am I to question that? But in reality, on the economics of it, I mean, the bottom line is the Lincoln Project ain't going anywhere if Biden wins. We've already welcomed the Anna Navarros of the world into the Democratic Party, the Steve Schmitz of the world into the Democratic Party. These Republicans that should, in any civilized society, be in the witness protection program and not allowed to speak in public, they're speaking at the DNC convention, some of these people. So I think, basically, I'm not worried about our side staying in the fight, but I am worried about the neoliberals using exactly what I just told you as a rationalization to do nothing, or to do what Obama did, which was a totally too small. Even Paul Krugman said Obama's stimulus should have been over $1 trillion. It gives them an excuse to do a smaller stimulus that's tilted towards tax credits and all this incremental bullshit, and basically to shoot a Nerf gun when we need AK-47, for lack of a better word, of stimulus.
No, I don't disagree with that either. I mean, that's definitely a very valid position to take. And I don't disagree with that. That has been their pattern always to go small, to go. I mean, look back at when the ACA was being negotiated to begin with. The ACA was, I mean, they had a super majority. They had the House, they had the Senate, and they had the White House, and they still took single payer off the table. That was with the wind at their back. They took that off the table. Imagine now, I mean, they've been conditioning you to hate Trump before Trump ever did anything in office. I mean, back in the Clinton, when they were running against each other, they were already talking about impeachment before he had even been elected. And so the Russian stuff that's coming back again, they're already talking about foreign interference and they're already planting seeds of doubt. So yeah, they're going to go small. They're always going to go small. And it's because their corporate donors will not make enough money. They won't make more money if the government intercedes and helps people, because then all of a sudden you don't need to go to a bank to get a loan. Now all of a sudden you're taken care of. Why in the world would you have to go into private debt? So yeah, this is them taking care of their donors yet again. They've got the built-in excuse. We're fighting for you. Donald Trump buried us with all this horrible stuff. We're digging out, but we're going to do it together. And all this platitude nonsense. And I don't disagree. I think you hit the nail on the head pretty well there.
And
absolutely.
Thank you, Cyril O'Reilly, $20. Until progressives have just a basic understanding of MMT, we will never have a better standard of living with programs such as Medicare for All, federal jobs guarantee, living wage, debt-free public college, #learn MMT. I completely agree. And keep those super chats coming. That's a good segue that Cyril gave me, because I was going to ask you, listen, I'm very happy that Cori Bush won. I'm very happy that Jamal Bowman won. I'm very happy that Rashida Tlaib won re-election. I hope Paula Jean Swearingen is victorious in West Virginia. And there's plenty of other progressive candidates. So this is not like a knock on the newbies coming in. And, you know, the truth is, for all the, AOC and these deserve criticism from time to time, but it is reality. They have not had the numbers that the Tea Party lunatics had to actually block things. They're not at that number yet. However, you know, you've talked about climate change being like basically here, 9 years away. But I mean,
it's here.
Yeah, I mean, North Carolina just had an earthquake, a massive earthquake, part of which
yes.
is due to fracking. I mean, the hurricanes are increasing. So my question is, if we're starting to get the numbers of victory, and Bernie, even though he lost, is getting these reinforcements, why aren't they publicly talking MMT? You got them behind closed doors. You said they were trying to explain to the Biden dinosaurs on the Unity Commission that we have all this money. But publicly, I don't even hear AOC saying, why are we even doing unemployment? Why are we even doing this? We could just create the money and cover everything. This deficit debt shit is just bullshit. We have the money. You just got to be careful about inflation. But we could just be the backstop right now. Why isn't Bernie talking that way? He's not running for election now. He's got nothing to lose. Why isn't, even the candidates that are running, like the Cori Bushes of the world, this and that, more red districts, maybe you have to temper the way you speak. But AOC's got nothing to, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. I don't even hear the progressives that are actually, for the most part, fighting the good fight, getting this out there. And if they're not getting it out there, you're not going to force MSNBC or CNN to cover, MMT, or put the term MMT aside. Just the fact that we're being conned and we have the money for this. There is no such thing as how we're going to pay for it.
Now, what I see with AOC, and she gets knocked for good reason, but the thing that I see with her is she is a very, very smart and savvy person, in that she sees the numbers of people she's got to work with, and she realizes, like Bernie, I don't have the numbers. I don't have the numbers. And that's the bottom line, is living to fight for another day. And this goes back to what Obama said, make me serve you, right? Even if you didn't believe him, he was like, you got to make me do this. Guys out there in the world, make me do this, right? And we don't have enough progressives making them do anything, number one. I mean, just now, if a quick scan of your Facebook page or up and down social media will show you how many Democrats out there think that Donald Trump has just somehow or another defunded Social Security. That is a huge number of people to try and change their mind, to make them understand, as bad as Trump is, and he is terrible, that this isn't real, that this is bullshit, right? But that's what they believe. And they huddle in packs and they self-reinforce this bad doctrine. And it's safe because they've been left behind. There is no more Bernie at the front, like I said before. So what you have the typical Democrat narrative that the Republicans are raiding Social Security. It's been around since Reagan, and you've heard it through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and it's not going away until we debunk these things. But to be fair, I think that a lot of that is behind the scenes. I'm watching folks like Fadl Kaboub speaking with Justice Democrats, having full-blown private sessions with all these candidates, teaching them.
Can you describe for the audience who that is?
Fadl Kaboub is one of Stephanie's good friends. He's also a professor at Denison University and is the head of the Global Institute for Sustainable Prosperity. Fadl is also a big supporter of real progressives. And he is someone that teaches a lot of the Middle East and third world nations, basically how to institute a job guarantee and how to deal with sovereign currency, even in, a spectrum of sovereignty, like some of these sub-Saharan type, African nations like the Congo and Senegal and stuff like that. So Fadl is a really bright guy that has the ability to work with regular people in the street to teach them the basics of modern monetary theory and to answer so many questions. He's just truly a gem on many levels. But Fadl is basically having these Zoom calls with candidates all over the place, and he is teaching them inside. He and Andres Bernal, who worked with AOC and also worked with Ashcraft and some others. They've been very instrumental and getting this word out there to these politicians. And so I do believe a new crop of people is learning this behind the scenes, albeit they're not comfortable yet. There's still fear that they'll be ridiculed, and there's just not enough progressive support on the ground to push back against the bad economic narratives. So they're caught in this really awkward position of wanting to be truth tellers, yet needing to get elected. And because our movement is just absolute, I think you've seen it in the chats and previous shows. A lot of people are very resistant to the things that I'm saying, like somehow or another, this guy didn't know about the private Federal Reserve and all these things that they say. And it's like, guys, come on, stop. I'm not making this stuff up. I've got great air cover, great air cover here. Stephanie Kelton being the top of them all. So, Fadl is teaching these people. Lauren Ashcraft, I actually did an interview with her, a guy named Richard Dean Winfield out in Georgia. These are two people that really know MMT. They know the job guarantee. In fact, Richard Dean Winfield is actually a Senate candidate running on the idea of a federal job guarantee. So there are people out there doing it. But, people like Cori Bush, I know Cori has sat through Fadl's talks. I know that many of them have sat through. I've watched the private sessions, and he's telling them straight, there's no wiggle room. So I do believe there's a new crop of people learning this, and I'm hopeful that we as a movement, we as people, we as activists, take that and really start doing it ourselves to give them the air cover to be bold. If we're scared and we don't know this stuff, they're not gonna rock the boat. They got to get elected. Right. So it's up to us to clear the runway for them.
And VA from New York, $10 weekly MMT segment with Steve. Hey, don't tempt us. We might do it. Gino, $24.99. I was pumped by now when Obama ran. Inspiring. Bernie shocked me, and I was inspired. Someone was finally saying what I wanted to say. I can't remember one inspiring speech from Biden yet. Not one. I miss Bernie's good trouble. Yeah, I can't. I could look for eternity and not find a speech from Biden that would get you going. Carl Knight, $20. 20 bones for Status Coup. Love you all and the members too. Yes, good reminder for the 460 people here. If you came in late, if you sign up as a Status Coup member today, you'll get a free Status Coup mask. statuscoup.com/join. That's statuscoup.com/join. Definitely support us if you can for as low as $5 and get a free mask. If you sign up as an annual member, that's $179 annually, you'll get a free mask and T-shirt. So definitely some good perks for you to get in. And that actually brings me to my last question, Steve. I mean, the truth is, independent media, there's not a lot of independent media even talking about MMT. I'm not going to lie, I don't talk about it that much because, frankly, it's frustrating to try and talk about something that people pretend isn't a thing. So it's like talking into a cave sometimes. But I talk about it a little bit more than I used to. But I think in reality, all the things that we've talked about, from the donors won't let the politicians do big things, to independent media, even before the pandemic, has been suppressed to the point. And just to give people, if you're new to this channel, an idea, when I was at the Young Turks, I mean, I started a channel for them. It was at 2,000 subscribers. In less than a year, I got it to 140,000 subscribers on YouTube. No, I'm not, this isn't because I'm bitter. I'm just telling you the truth. They barely even promoted it. It didn't grow because it was the Young Turks. It grew because there's actually a lot of demand for this content. I was actually in the field covering stories in the trenches, on the campaign trail in Flint, Michigan, covering the water crisis, Standing Rock, and the channel exploded. Doing the same exact content here, Steve, the only difference is not for TYT. We've been growing pretty much at a snail's pace. I mean, before YouTube changed its algorithm, which they did 2 years ago, and when they changed their algorithm, it basically just flooded people's feeds, flooded people's recommended with CNN videos, MSNBC videos. You'll be watching a Jimmy Dore video. In the past, it might have referred you next to a Status Coup video. Now it will refer you, to an ABC News video. The bottom line, Facebook, I don't even bother anymore because they've basically hidden channels like Status Coup in a cave. So I'm not saying this to get a violin. I'm not saying this so people will sign up as a member. But Real Progressives, I'm sure, has dealt with this to a degree too. It's hard to win the war of ideas if people can't see your ideas. So I think there's a real element here of, I've been saying it for a while. I have a call later about this with someone. Independent media needs to, right now we're all kind of on our own little islands doing our thing. A lot of people go live like at the same time as each other. The problem isn't too much content. The problem to me is it's not organized. There's not a lot of collaboration between outlets. There's egos, this and that. And frankly, yeah, Bernie did a lot wrong. He made a lot of mistakes that I've covered at this channel. But to me, Bernie Sanders would be the nominee right now, if not for, between Biden's South Carolina victory and Super Tuesday, there wasn't an all-out new super PAC formed. Between MSNBC, CNN, all of the corporate media flooded the zone for 5 days. I read one story in the New York Times. Biden got over $100 million in 5 days of free advertising. The Buttigieg, the Klobuchar, all falling in line. Beto coming out, them airing that whole rally down in Texas for Biden. It was unlimited free media for Biden. And Bernie didn't react well. He didn't pivot. His campaign didn't pivot well. But Bernie also kept calling him my friend and would barely go after him and those things. But without the media attack, I think Bernie is the nominee, because if you look at the exit polls, and I've studied them, most people that voted for Biden, almost half, decided in those final days before Super Tuesday, they were still open to Bernie. So I guess what I'm asking you is, what is your prescription for fighting this type of suppression? Like me, you might have not figured it out yet. But I don't think you could inform people if people don't know when you're live, if people don't even know you have a channel. And this is not just Status Coup. I mean, even much bigger channels than us, like Secular Talk, I mean, to a much lesser degree, because they had a built-in audience before all this fuckery. Right. But even they have seen videos being demonetized on the regular, viewers being unsubscribed when they didn't unsubscribe, appearing far less in people's recommended sections. What do we do here?
Well, we unfortunately put all of our eggs in the Facebook basket back in the day. I mean, we've got 127,000 followers, which is good. I mean, it's a good number, right? But I would say that if I go live, I'm going to have, it doesn't matter if I've got the biggest star on the planet, I might get a couple hundred watching live, couple hundred out of 127,000. Give me a break, right? And then over on YouTube, we have not been able to migrate that 127,000 to YouTube. I mean, we get comments, and it's embarrassing, but I'll just tell you, folks, Real Progressives has been around since the beginning of the Bernie Sanders campaign. Real Progress in Action is what our YouTube channel is called. And if you go check it out, you'll see we have only got like 8,700 followers on YouTube. 8,700. We got 127,000 on Facebook, but 8,700 on YouTube. And it's just ridiculous. We cannot break out of the hole. And, you know, our podcast, which is the thing that's in my background here, Macro and Cheese, this is an important podcast. I mean, I've had some of the biggest names in all of economics around the world on this show. And, you know, we might get 7,000, 8,000 listens a month. And I mean, that's chump change for a podcast. And so we don't break out of that. And we're on Rockfin now. I think you're on Rockfin as well. And we're just now starting to put content over there. But even Rockfin's hard to find. I mean, there's nothing for us out there. And you nailed it, man. You nailed it hard. We don't collaborate. There's too many egos. Not you and me, because you always are kind and bring me on, and I appreciate that immensely. But there are too many egos. And there is way too much what about meism out there instead of what about we. That whole not me, us thing should be our ethos regardless. And I really do believe that we have done our movement a great disservice by not being just truth tellers. Because I think that if we lift each other up, that we can break through that. It's going to require a whole lot more. And I'm going to put the onus on myself and others like me that we don't work together. We don't take the time to work together because it's a lot of work just to do this production. I mean, just, you know how much effort you put in just to getting this thing live, much less all the other work. And you got to go out on the road, you're doing all this stuff, and you're doing it on a shoestring budget. I mean, the equipment, the software, all that stuff costs money, costs time, and it's difficult to say, oh, I got to care about what these folks are doing too. I get it. I think you hit the nail on the head though, Jordan. I think that it's up to us, people like us, to collaborate and build like a consortium together so that we are timing our live feeds, so that we're kind of working it in so that people are, hey, don't forget to check out those guys at Status Coup, or don't forget to check out those guys at Convo Couch, or don't forget to check out, you know, Jimmy Dore or whoever, right? We should be doing more collaboration like that. And I think it's a shame that we don't. But you said something else too I want to nail. You may not talk about MMT that much, but I remember the first time I talked to you, Jordan, and you were like, oh, you know, Schenck is, you know, he's all for deficits. It's okay. And that was all you thought it was. You have grown. I mean, I'm telling you this as a friend, not as an alternative media guy. You have grown immensely. You know the stuff. When we talk, you're asking all the right questions. So that is a big time Yahoo thing for me, you know? And I know for a fact that there are other groups out there that have had Stephanie on, had myself on, and others. So, you know, I think that it's not nearly enough. But I do believe that you hit the nail on the head that if we start collaborating together, finding ways to lift each other up and work together, because we're all in this fight together. Mm-hmm. Any one of us by ourselves is too small. Mm-hmm. We need each other. So
yeah, and I think people need to realize, because I saw a couple people in the super chat saying YouTube's not affecting you, blah 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 blah. No, it actually is, because the bottom line is, maybe if you think about it kind of as a seesaw, right? Basically, if the actual seesaw is made so that one side is always up and the other side is always down, it's not actually it's not actually going back and forth. YouTube basically admits this, by the way. It's in their new code of something. They said, we elevate, quote, authoritative outlets. They used the term authoritative and then said, like CNN, Fox News was included, and some other ones. While, I don't know what the term is, but basically minimizing less trustworthy news. The head of Facebook's news partnership said the same exact thing at a conference. years ago. It came out recently that I actually spoke with someone at YouTube who told me, I was always thinking, am I a conspiracy theorist? Is there a list or something of like approved outlets versus not approved outlets? I found out there is a list, because we were trying, when we were on the campaign trail, we were trying to simply purchase ads. What that means is literally try and boost the videos to be seen more. Basically, to try and boost the videos to be seen at the number that, at the amount they would be seen pre-YouTube changing its algorithm. And we kept getting denied, saying this is political advertising. So I was saying, and it's like easier to talk to a CIA, it's easier to like talk to a government CIA official than get a human on the phone from YouTube. But I was saying, what the fuck are you talking about, a political campaign? I'm literally holding a microphone. I have a cameraman. We're journalists. We're not running a campaign. We're not supporting a candidate. I am in Iowa. I am in New Hampshire. I am in South Carolina. We were in the field getting denied the ability just to purchase ads. The same thing was happening on Facebook. Same thing with Twitter. They're not doing that to CNN. They're not doing that to MSNBC. They're not doing it to PBS. They're not doing it, frankly, to the Young Turks, who's supposedly independent, but, you know, that's a different story. So my point is, if the game is rigged, not just politically, but in the media, to basically elevate the status quo propagandists and their news and hide from status coup to real progressives, I mean, it's a major problem. Look at The Hill, for example. And Kyle brought this up on his show. I love Crystal Ball. I think that's a great show, Rising. It's one of the first things I watch in the morning. But their growth is not only because it's a great show, it's because it's The Hill. So YouTube's algorithm automatically elevates a more corporate outlet. I'm shocked and quite pleased that The Hill has let Crystal and Sagar do their thing. I hope that continues. It's very rare to see a corporate outlet like The Hill, which is corporate, have such progressive real talk. But they're being smart because they're seeing it's working, and the channel is rising. But a big reason it's rising, and that's the name, is because YouTube doesn't hide it. It's a corporate outlet, which it's always showing up in recommendeds. They also benefit because it goes on their actual website, thehill.com. A lot of their videos are shown there. So again, it's not crapping on them. To be clear, I love going on there. Their content is great. But Kyle even pointed out, I mean, Kyle's been around for, I think, over 10 years. They're almost about to lap Kyle on subscribers in less than a year. So, like, it just shows you, yeah, they have great content, but it's being aided because they happen to be at a corporate outlet. We have very similar content, whether it's MMT, me covering the campaign in the field. It's a struggle. And I guess the whole point of bringing this all up for the audience is it really comes down to the audience. Obviously, right now is different because you could afford what you could afford during a pandemic. But people really need to make the decision, do you want independent media, or is it a necessity that you need? Because if it's just something you want, you might not take that step to pay $5 a month or whatever it is. But if you think it's something you need, like water, or like, you know, I don't want to compare it to water, but you get the point, then I suggest supporting whatever one you want, whether it's us, whether it's real progressives, whatever it is, because without...
Whether it's all of us.
Right. Because without it, I mean, I have a little ball... You know, Status Coup, frankly, has a higher bar to meet because, you know, just to travel in the field for one trip can run us $3,000 to $5,000. I mean, between a cameraman and me, you got flights, hotels, rent a car, food. That's how much it costs. Even when you're being frugal, that's how much it costs. Whereas other shows, you know, once you get your studio together and other built-in costs, I don't want to say you're on cruise control, but there's just not as much cost. That's why when people say, Jordan, stop asking for money, I'm like, all right, do you want to fund the money? Do you want to provide the money?
$500 a month for live view.
Like, it's $500 just for our live view a month. Even if we don't go out, it's $500 for the data, for the server. So I guess my long rant is support independent media, and I think more independent media has to do collaboration. I mean, I'll tell you straight up, I text certain hosts when I'm in the field that are progressives. I don't always get a response. I mean, I'm not begging them, can I come on your show? But I think they get the hint why I'm in Louisville covering the demand for justice for Breonna Taylor, right? Or I'm in Flint. They still don't have clean water. And sometimes you don't even get that crowd boosting from your own sandbox. I'm sure you've had the same thing for years. So I think progressive outlets need to wake up because, frankly, to me, Steve, the bottom line is nothing is going to change electorally. I agree it's not all electorally, but nothing is going to change electorally until you get through to the people over the age of 60.
Yep.
That is why Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Obama, there's a lot of other reasons, including rigged elections. But you look at this last election, if it was just under 50, Bernie would have won in a landslide. Just Michigan, Bernie won every single age demographic under 50 by a significant margin. He got slaughtered above 50. What are they watching? MSNBC and CNN, they're reading the New York Times. But if independent media came together, if independent media had the actual infrastructure to reach older people that are being brainwashed, I think it's a good 50-50 chance that you could change some minds.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, I look at our numbers and our demographics, and ironically, we have a lot of boomers that follow us, and they are. It's weird actually. I mean, when you look at the age groups, we have a fairly large number of volunteers even that are boomers that are into this. So they are willing. There are people out there that are willing to learn this stuff. They just need to have access to it. And folks, put your money where your mouth is. Put your time where your mouth is. I mean, this is, we're media, but we're part of you all. We're an extension of you all. I mean, this is a we thing, man. I mean, I'm not here just to cover random news. I'm here to change the world. So my entire approach to things, I'll just tell you up front, is activism based. And so I'm hoping that the things that I'm fighting for are the things you're fighting for, and that we together can put them things over the top and win. That's my purpose in life and goal. And I believe, even though, Jordan, you cover everything, I have seen you relentlessly cover Flint, Michigan. I've seen you relentlessly cover people that are committing corrupt acts. I will never forget you at the 2016 convention. You were absolutely majestic there. You earned every bit of accolades you've ever had, every bit of credibility you've ever had. You have been a truth teller through and through. And I want to just tell everybody that's listening that I really value the work Status Coup does, and more importantly, the work that you do wherever you are, because you always bring it honest and truthful, and you put a lot of effort in, a lot of effort. So I want to really give you props there, buddy.
Thanks, man. And by the way, just to be clear, I love our viewers over 60. It's not, I'm not generalizing, but the truth is, even though there's a lot of woke older folks that are progressive, your generation, your some of the people you went to college with, unfortunately, have been brought astray. Because the data shows, even though there was plenty of older folks supporting from Bernie to Medicare for All to all these good things, so it's not a knock on you, the majority of older folks, they vote, and they vote for the Bidens of the world because they've been conditioned to accept less and think nothing big is possible, and that's unfortunate. Steve, thank you very much. I know you stepped away from your family today to join us, so thank you. Tell everyone where to go, because, yes, a lot of people might not know when you're live on Facebook or these other places.
So just so you know, we're beginning September 1. We will no longer be at www.realprogressivesusa.com. We will be moving to our brand new website, which I'm extremely excited about, and that is www.realprogressives.org. We are a 501c3, so you get the benefit of being able to write your donations off to us as well. The other thing is that we're on Real Progress in Action on YouTube. So you've got the Real Progress in Action, which is a 501c4 to do our political wing, our real activism, and you got our 501c3 to do our education and stuff. And the most important thing right now for me is that if you guys get a chance, check out our podcast at www.macro, M-A-C-R-O, the letter N, cheese, CHEESE.com, and you will pick up on what I consider to be 80 episodes of the best podcast you could possibly listen to. So I'm biased, I admit, but I think that you all will find that those podcasts are worth your time. So Jordan, thank you for giving us that, buddy.
And I hope your current website redirects, because I put your current website in the description.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It will be redirected.
Okay, good.
No question.
Yeah, check them out.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot as far as MMT from Steve. I mean, Stephanie Kelton is the one, being quoted and all that, but Steve's been doing this too for a very long time without the fanfare. So thanks for coming on. We'll try to do this more regularly because the truth is, I mean, Republicans, Democrats, there's no need for these negotiations. They have the money. If it's a crisis for rich people, they come up with the money real quick. They just move the decimal point digitally. They don't ask how you're going to pay for it. But when it's a crisis for you and I and black people and brown people and indigenous people and working white people, we got to have weeks-long negotiations, all this theatrics, the deadline clocks start going on CNN, and it's all bullshit theater. That's the reality. It's all bullshit theater. We have the money to not only keep people's jobs, but actually protect the economy so we could focus on what will get us out of this, which is stopping the transmission of the virus. That is the reality. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
You got it, brother. Talk to you soon.
All right.